The cowboy had never expected such a twist of fate. Dust still hung heavy in the air from the brutal border skirmish that had shaken the land. Arrows snapped in the dirt, bullet shells gleamed in the fading sun, and the cries of battle echoed, faintly like ghosts. He had fought only to survive, not to win. Yet as silence finally took hold, he saw the Apache chief lying broken upon the earth, blood darkening the soil. The man who had once been his enemy, the fierce guardian of his people, was now gasping his last breath. The cowboy knelt beside him, unsure if this was wise, but something greater than fear moved his hands. The chief's eyes locked on his, not with hatred but with a strange calm, as though he had already crossed into another world. His lips trembled, whispering words that carried both weight and mystery. They spoke of a promise, of life owed for life spared. The cowboy felt those words sear into his chest, though he barely understood them. When the chief's eyes closed for the final time, a silence deeper than death settled over the battlefield. When the dust cleared, two figures remained, young women, their dark hair tangled with wind, their faces marked with grief but not tears. They stood close together, unmoving, as though carved from stone. The cowboy realized with a jolt who they were, the wives of the fallen chief. In Apache custom, they were more than widows. They were sacred bonds left without protection. As the tribe scattered into the hills, abandoning the field of loss, the two women stayed, their gazes fixed on him, unreadable, but heavy with unspoken meaning. The weight of it hit him harder than any bullet. To inherit the wives of a chief was no small matter. It was a duty, a burden, and a brand upon his soul. He had not asked for it, nor did he fully understand it, but in that moment, standing among the wreckage of lives lost, he knew the decision was no longer his to make. Their survival had been placed in his hands, tied to an ancient law he had never sworn to uphold. His stomach tightened, his hands shook. He was just a rancher, not a guardian. The two women stepped forward, neither begging nor resisting. Their silence said more than words could carry. One held a small bundle wrapped in cloth bread perhaps, or medicine, all that remained of their world. The other carried nothing, her arms bare as if to show she brought no threat. Their eyes, deep and unwavering, carried the echo of the chief's command. The cowboy shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the horizon where smoke still rose from burned wagons. This land had never allowed peace, and now it asked him to carry more than he thought possible. He thought of riding away, leaving them to fate. Surely it was not his burden. He could convince himself he owed nothing to people who once saw him as enemy. Yet, as he looked at their faces, proud even in grief, something inside him rebelled against turning away. He remembered the chief's eyes in that last moment, not of hatred, but of trust. Trust that had been carved into a dying man's whisper. The cowboy knew that if he left them, he would carry that betrayal like a shadow until his last breath. He could not do it. With trembling resolve, he gestured toward his horse. It was not built to carry three, yet the land offered no choice. The women followed without a word, their steps steady, their presence both fragile and unyielding. He helped them mount as best he could, shifting weight, tightening straps. The horse stamped uneasily under the load, but obeyed. As he swung into the saddle, the cowboy glanced once more at the battlefield behind him, the fallen bodies, the broken arrows, the silence of death. He turned away, carrying not victory, but responsibility born from loss. The trail stretched. Ahead, wide and merciless, the desert wind whipped at his face, carrying the scent of smoke and blood. The women sat behind him, their silence pressing heavier than words. Every mile he rode, the weight of duty grew. He thought of the town nearby, of what settlers would say when they saw him with two Apache widows. Whispers would spread like wildfire. Men would spit, women would scorn. Some would reach for guns. Yet the alternative, abandoning them, was something his soul could not bear. He rode on, bracing himself for battles yet to come. That night, they stopped by a creek, the only water for miles. He built a fire, the flames flickering against the vast darkness of the plains. The women sat together, close but distant, speaking softly in their own tongue. Their voices carried sorrow, but also strength. He offered them food from his saddlebag, plain rations of dried meat and beans. They accepted with quiet nods, their dignity unbroken. As he watched them, he realized they were not helpless. They had lived through storms the West could not count, but even strength needed shelter, and somehow, that was now him. As he lay awake under the endless sky, stars burning cold above, the cowboy's mind churned. He had set out this morning as a simple man, a drifter tending cattle and fences. Now, by dusk, he bore the burden of a chief's last command, and the lives of two women who had no one else. He did not know what tomorrow held: hatred from settlers, pursuit from warriors, or judgment from both. But in the stillness of night, with the fire crackling and the women safe beside it, one truth cut clear. Fate had chosen him, whether he liked it or not. Whispers spread across the frontier like wildfire. In saloons, men leaned close over whiskey, muttering about the white cowboy who now shared his roof with two Apache widows. Some laughed, others spat, calling it madness. To the settlers, it was scandalous, a betrayal of blood. To Apache warriors, it was insult to women, bound by their law, now living under a rancher's roof. Every ride into town felt heavier. Eyes followed him, some with scorn, others with the cold promise of violence. His hand often brushed his revolver, not out of desire, but because he knew survival sometimes left no choice. Yet inside his lonely ranch, the story was different. Where hatred festered beyond his fences, peace grew within them. The women carried ancient knowledge of the land. They showed him which roots healed wounds, which herbs eased fevers, which songs calmed restless horses. Their silence was not emptiness, but strength. And he began to see the world through their eyes, where every stone, every breeze, every shadow of the plains held meaning. In turn, he offered what he could: food, shelter, and a shield against the venom of men who couldn't understand. His cabin became more than wood, it became home. At first, it had been obligation. He had saved them because honor demanded it, because a dying chief's whisper left him no choice. But with passing days, something shifted. Laughter, faint at first, began to echo in the cabin. One woman, bold in spirit, teased his clumsy ways with herbs. The other, quiet and gentle, sang low songs at night, her voice weaving through the crackle of fire. The cowboy found himself listening, not as guardian, but as kin. The lines that had once divided them, race, blood, tribe, blurred under the shared weight of survival and loss. But the West never allowed peace for long. Trouble brewed like storm clouds, carried by horsemen with grudges older than memory. Settlers rode by the ranch, their eyes lingering, their voices thick with warning. "Ain't natural," one muttered, loud enough to hear. "Ain't right," another spat, hand resting near his belt. The cowboy kept his rifle close, though he longed for quiet. Worse still, Apache scouts had been seen near the river. If they discovered where the chief's widows lived, vengeance would be swift. In every shadow, he saw the shape of danger, closing in from both sides. One night, as wind howled through the plains, a gunshot cracked in the distance. He rose fast, rifle in hand, eyes narrowed to the dark. The women stirred, fear flashing in their eyes. He signaled for silence, moving outside with the patience of a hunter. On the ridge, he spotted torches flickering, settlers 3 or 4, circling like wolves. They did not come closer, but their message was clear. They were watching, waiting. The cowboy's jaw tightened. He had expected this day. He returned to the fire, speaking low, "They'll come soon. When they do, we stand together. Family?" The word lingered between them. Family, not chosen by blood, but forged by survival. The women nodded, their eyes hardening not with fear, but resolve. They had lost everything once. They would not surrender again. Over the next days, they worked together, fortifying the ranch, stacking wood, preparing medicines in case of wounds. The cowboy taught them how to load rifles, how to fire steady, though he prayed they would never need to. They, in turn, taught him patience, teaching him how to listen to the earth for warnings before men arrived. In that unity, strength grew. When the attack came, it was sudden. Before dawn, the pounding of hooves shattered the silence. Settlers, faces twisted by drink and hate, rode fast toward the ranch, guns glinting in torchlight. The cowboy swung into action, firing a warning shot into the sky. "This land's mine," he roared, voice like thunder. "You step on it, you bleed on it." The women stood behind him, rifles in hand, their presence defiant against the night. The riders hesitated, not expecting resistance, not expecting Apache widows to stand shoulder to shoulder with a white man. The standoff crackled like fire, waiting for spark. For long moments, the world held its breath. Then one rider spurred forward, pistol raised. A single shot rang out, not his, but hers. The bold widow had fired first, her aim true. The man tumbled from his saddle, and chaos erupted. Gunfire thundered, sparks flying from cabin walls. The cowboy fought with grim resolve, every bullet carrying the weight of his promise. The women moved with precision, not wild fear, but the calm of those who had already faced death and refused to bow. When smoke finally cleared, the riders fled, leaving behind only silence, blood, broken pride. Breathless, they stood together, firelight dancing on their faces. The cowboy lowered his rifle, sweat streaking his brow. The women exchanged looks, then turned to him, their eyes steady. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them: respect, gratitude, belonging. They were no longer bound by obligation or law, but by choice. A family not built by tradition, but forged by defiance against a world that had tried to erase them. He knew the whispers would never stop, that danger would always linger. But as long as they stood together, he no longer feared the desert's cruelty. In the days that followed, the ranch carried new life. Fields were mended, laughter rose brighter, and for the first time, hope felt real. Outsiders still spoke, still judged, but their voices no longer mattered. The cowboy had chosen his path, and the women had chosen it too. In a land built on hatred and fire, they had carved out something rare, a bond, stronger than vengeance, stronger than fear. And as the Wild West rolled on with its endless storms, 3 unlikely souls stood as proof. Sometimes family is not found in blood, but in the courage to stand together.